Next on the agenda is our third panel discussion. May I welcome the moderator for this session, Mr. Amish Abdullah, and panelists Mr. Ayman Rashid, Mr. Shamun Adam, and Mr. Mohammad Bashir to the stage. The discussion is on decentralization by design, synergizing local knowledge and national policy. Amish Abdullah is a legal academic, researcher, and practitioner with extensive teaching, research, and litigation experience across South Asia and the Maldives. He currently serves as senior lecturer, Faculty of Law, Villa College, teaching the LLB and LLM levels and supervising postgraduate research. His recent work includes serving as project manager and researcher for the Parliamentary Inquiry on Online Violence Against Women in Maldives 2025, commissioned by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy in UK. He has been awarded multiple Villa College research grants spanning from 2022 to 2024 for projects focusing on intellectual property, tourism accessibility, marine stability, and eco-friendly infrastructure. He leads the Street Law Program and serves as executive advisor to the Villa College Law Society. In addition, he is a member of the editorial board of 3 international journals and frequently participates as a panelist, arbitrator, and workshop facilitator. A former advocate at the Supreme Court of India, he currently offers consultancy and pro bono legal services in the Maldives.
Good morning, Assalamu alaikum, everyone sitting and standing as well. Please take seats. It is my privilege to introduce today's distinguished panelists who bring extensive experience in governance, decentralization, and sustainable development in the Maldives. First, I would start with Mr. Ayman Rashid. He's a consultant to the Maldives Local Council Association, previously led the USAID-funded Strong and Inclusive Maldivian Democracy Program at the International Republican Institute. He also served over a decade at Transparency Maldives as executive director, focusing on good governance, decentralization, elections, and youth empowerment. Next, Mr. Mohammad Bashir, president of Nuno Atoll and chairperson of the Maldives Local Council Association, with a background in political management and data engineering. He champions conservation, circular economy, digitalization, and empowering local communities for sustainable development. Our third panelist, Mr. Shamun Adam, Director General of the Local Government Authority and head of the Maldives Institute of Local Governance, has over 15 years experience in decentralization and governance. His leadership has been instrumental in professionalizing local councils and shaping national policy frameworks. Finally, Ms. Aminat Shauna, former Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Technology. She led major initiatives in renewable energy, single-use plastics phase out, and protected area expansion. Internationally recognized, she has represented the Maldives in UN climate talks and was named a Bloomberg New Economy Catalyst in 2023. Please join me in warmly welcoming our panelists. Well, today we are not escaping this hall without a solution. The long table discussions with ups and downs, socially quoted, legally documented since ever. The central pull and the decentral push. The topic, decentralization by design, synergizing local knowledge and national policy. So I think there will be no other better way to start the discussion without looking into the history. Sorry, I dropped the mic. Without looking into the history of the decentralization scape in the Maldives. So following that, my first question is to Mr. Shamoon Adam. Which is based on policy and historical context. Mr. Shamoon, decentralization has been a recurring theme since 2008 Constitution, yet its trajectory has shifted back and forth. From your perspective at the LGA, how do you assess the progress so far, and why does decentralization remain vital given the Maldives' geography and dispersed communities?
Thank you very much, Amish. Actually, the decentralization is not a new idea for the Maldives. For centuries, we have very autonomous island communities and atoll communities. Even though we have island and atoll chiefs, most of the decisions, almost all the decisions are actually managed by local communities. Even the salary of these island chiefs and atoll chiefs were paid by the community. So they managed their affairs. So there was a very strong decentralization even in the beginning. The centralization actually happened in late 1950s and early 60s, where the government decided to control the trades. We used to have very strong trade networks within atolls and also within regions, and also between atolls and the international, like Colombo and other countries. So from 1950s and 1960s, under the administration of Ibrahim Nasir, there was a policy that all the trades has to be, all the producers has to be brought to Male and sell to a Bodu store. All the remaining can be sold to the local community. So even the international trades, the vessel has to first come to Male and sell those goods to the government. And this actually created a central hub controlling all the trades and forced to actually to demolish all the existing trade routes within the atolls and between regions as well. So so from there onwards, the more central form of local governance is managed by the central government. So the push for decentralization then began in 2000 with the introduction of democratic push. In 2008, it was the first time that in our history where a legal framework, our institution recognized the decentralization as a form of local governance. So from that, in 2010, we had a legal framework, Decentralization Act, where that local islands and atoll communities have their own island councils, elected bodies. So their local affairs are managed by elected. So there are a lot of what you call advantage or a lot of push for decentralization. Sometimes the governments take back the decentralization power centrally. So there were a lot of changes depending on the political party that was in power. I think the most important the devolution happened in 2019 with the amendment brought to the Decentralization Act, 8th Amendment, where a lot of powers were actually devolved to local councils. Like that was the first time the fiscal autonomy was allocated to the local councils, where that a central envelope was formed, 15% of the revenue, and also the 40% of the lease has to be given to the local islands with a formula. And there was introduction of women quota system, and council's term was from 3 year to 5 year, it was extended. And also there was the first time the demarcation of the boundaries and a lot of resources were actually handed over to local community. The thing actually, but there were a lot of changes to the decentralization system from 2010 to up until now. For 15 years, there has been a lot of changes. 16 amendments were brought to local, the Decentralization Act, where sometimes the power has been removed from the local councils and sometimes given back to the local councils. And the questions, is it important for the Modi? Says it is very important for the Modi decentralization, because this is the natural way of governing since the beginning. And if we decentralize, that means that we are giving power to local communities for them to take decisions, because a dispersed island nation like Maldives, it is very difficult to manage from the central level. If we manage from the center, some islands would be left behind, and the needs of the community won't be understood fully. So decentralization is very beneficial, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Shamoon. So it started long back, right? The centralization scheme. My next question is about the administrative capacity, and this question goes to Mr. Ayman Rashid. You have worked closely with councils across the country. What do you see as the biggest challenge in building local administrative capacity, and how have political narratives been used to justify recent moves towards centralization?
Thank you, Amish. I'll expand on Shamoon's historical context. I'd like to identify two dimensions to this. One, the main reason is there's very little political incentive centrally to decentralize. Why? Because it's a question of whose resources, who gets to benefit from the resources of the country. As Shamoon said, historically, it has been the public that has managed the resources in their communities. However, since the 1950s, that trend reversed. A centralized approach to governance also meant a centralized approach to resource management. Benefiting of these resources also became centralized. And so a system of incentives was created whereby the central political authority also were able to control the natural resources of the communities. What that meant is a patronage network is created. We have the president, we have the parliament, and we have individuals connected to the president and parliament in the islands, either through delegated authority or through other systems such as political parties, Katibung, Atoruwering, that then exercise the power granted to them by the central government. So this is the patronage system. And what the decentralization system did is create a friction within this system where you have local communities getting together to say, no, we'd like to have something different. We'd like to make our own decisions. We'd like to use this resource for something else. And so that tension between the central government, which was managed through a system of patronage, to a local governance system where people got together and said, you'd like to use the resources in a different manner. So we have island councils with a clear jurisdiction now, but we don't have atoll councils with a clear jurisdiction. And again, we see atoll councils trying to clarify their jurisdiction so that they can use the resources in their atolls for the benefit of the community. An example is atoll councils coming together and saying, look, this island, this lagoon, this reef within our atoll, we'd like to use it for something. We do not want the central government to develop a resort on this, for example. But then the central government is like, no, this is the path we're going on. And so this creates a tension within the political system. And so fortunately or unfortunately, the central governments have always been very, very powerful. And so the incentives are stacked against local governance. And so central governments have created these narratives, sometimes very strong. And so the first issue is that of capacity. Yes, local governments do face an issue of capacity. But you know who else does face issues of capacity? The whole of the country. The whole of the government faces issues with capacity. In fact, having worked with local governments, I can say that for the purposes of administering an island, providing municipal services, and bringing the community together, the island councils are doing a much, much, much better job than all of the central governments I've witnessed. And this is not just my opinion, this is also backed by research. For example, the research that was commissioned by the government through the Maldives National University last year asked a number of questions. And number one of the main questions was, do you believe decentralization is the best form of governance for the country? And the overwhelming majority of people in the Maldives say yes. And two, the next most interesting response is, the people were asked to rank the services that were being provided in the islands and their satisfaction with these services. And you know what? What services get ranked the best? The services provided by the local governments, not the central government, not education, not health, not transport. And so these are very, very revealing statistics. And this is not just through the Maldives National University research. This is also supported by research by the International Republican Institute that I used to work for in the years 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. So there's a host of research conducted in the Maldives that show that decentralization is the way to go, that the people support decentralization, that the people want more autonomy, that the people want more say over how resources are being used. The second dimension I want to highlight is, given this historical context, given this friction between the central systems that have been created, the system of corruption and patronage versus the systems that we are trying to build, local governance, autonomy, powerful communities, powerful and resilient communities, these are currently at odds with each other. We need to find a way to make these work together. And the main challenge for decentralization and local governance is the lack of support of central governments and the lack of political will to politically decentralize and work with local governments to provide the space that they need to work. Fiscal autonomy, I'd like to, before I move on, I'd like to point out one fact that often people get wrong. There's a misconception that local governments waste a lot of money, that they get a lot of money through the budget, they're not being utilized. As Shamoon said, it is, local governments are given 5% of forecast revenue and 40% of land rent. What this amounts to is, for example, this year, it is 3.7% of the national budget, 3.7%. And these are the administrations that provide over 60% of municipal services across the whole of the Maldives. Road management, lighting, keeping the roads clean, looking after the cemeteries, the mosques, all of it. So in the grand scheme of things, giving salaries, lighting the roads, putting the ACs on, and providing municipal services, 3.7% is not even a drop in the bucket. And considering all of this, and also looking at the reports from the Auditor General that compare corruption in the local governments and the central governments, again, there's a difference between night and day, because one, by design, local governments have to disclose their financials regularly. It is in the law. And if my local government is spending in a way that doesn't, in a way that is against, for example, the local development plans that have been produced with the support and participation of local people, then the local people will speak out. And so the local governance system is set up in a way that increases local democracy, participation, etc. The central system is not, and they are at odds with each other. And so it's a system of patronage versus a system of local autonomy and democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Ayman. Like the findings that you shared with us, obviously that leads us to the understanding of law as well, right? Because people ask many things. Now, about the complexities of it, what's the awareness level, that's a different perspective. And that leads us, this panel discussion, to the next question that I'm going to ask Mr. Mohammed Bashir about the grassroots experience. At the council level, how have the 2019 amendments and the more recent centralization efforts affected your ability to deliver services and manage local resources? Can you share a concrete example of where autonomy made a difference or where restrictions created barriers? Personalized experience. And I have a mic for you.
Thank you for the panel and this opportunity as well, Villa College, and also the other panelists as well. Before going to share an experience, I think I would like to also add up to what Shamoon and Ayman also said. Maldives was a federal state. It wasn't mentioned in the constitution. It was, the atolls managed itself, taxed. They, as Shamoon has mentioned, they did foreign trade. They have their own customs. They had established their own penitentiary systems. So basically it was, up until 1943, it was like a federal state. In 1932 constitution also, it was like constitution, the parliament that was working on the constitution also have another historical review of the constitution, which Hussein Salahuddin wrote that Maldives was a federal state. And after 1943, North Uprising happened, and after that, this centralization happened. And I'm not sure when the unitary state was mentioned in the constitution, when it happened. But in 2008 constitution, unitary state was mentioned without any consultation. There was a referendum which took place to ask people whether it is a parliamentary system or a presidential system. Never asked whether it's a unitary or a federal system. South Uprising happened during 1960s. They were asking for federal states. North Uprising happened in 1943. They came to Mali to abolish the centralized unitary state. So when it comes to my experience, I'm very different. I have a very different perspective. It's not a decentralized system. It's a divide and rule conquer system where each island is also divided into 5 or 6 administrations. Now, after the new constitution and after the new decentralization act, it's not decentralization, it's a divide and conquer. Each island is fragmented into 5 or 6 state agencies. One is health center, which is managed by health ministry. Education aspects managed by education ministry. Electricity managed by Stelco, but it goes back to the responsible party is Environment Ministry, and water sanitation managed by a state agency. So basically, before 2008, there wasn't political decentralization, but it was more decentralized in administration because the island office itself managed the whole island. There was enough capacity to manage an island. So each and every office they created in island need to have an administrative setup. So when it comes to capacity, how do we have capacity when a 500 population do need a, or is required to have 5 offices? 5 administrative officers. How do we have that kind of capacity? And in terms of the 2008 constitution envisioned that atoll is the unit for administrative decentralized unit for governance, but the act the 2010 the created this decentralization act, which fragmented again, which fragmented the atolls into different islands. And 2019th amendment also gave jurisdiction to separate islands where the islands can't get together to have a unified voice or unified planning, regional level planning authority, or where they cannot have a regional level economy. All the economic resources are out of the jurisdiction. So bringing back separate island jurisdiction is like divide and conquer again. It's not decentralized. It's fragmenting atolls and making it weaker and dividing and making them suffer. It's not decentralization, it's a divide and conquer strategy that is happening, where when the islands are isolated, they get weaker and the development and the services get weaker and people move to the capital. That's what is happening. So after 2008, this amendment and the constitution, much more population moved to Mali. Why? Because it is designed such a way that the islands are scattered, made divided. There is no regional planning. There is no regional level administrative capacity that could be built. So many factors are put into this where people cannot have a regional level governance system. So it's not decentralization.
Pardon me, but somehow it feels me like you're advocating for centralization. This- yes. All right. So thanks a lot. Thank you for your grassroots experience, indeed, Mr. Bashir. And now let's move to the local knowledge, the environmental perspective. And the question is for Ms. Shauna, the former minister. Decentralization is not only about governance, but also about managing resources sustainably. How has centralization versus decentralization shaped environmental management and climate resilient efforts in island communities? And how can local knowledge be better integrated into the national policy?
Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here with the panelists and with the conference participants as well. Before I go into your original question, I'd like to also reflect on some of the discussions that has happened and some of the panelists' remarks as well. I think it's really important to understand that since we have started to, I would say, experiment with decentralization, it's been about 15 plus years, which is, if we think from a broader perspective, from a governance perspective, I think it's a very short time period. If we look into global perspectives on how decentralization has successfully been implemented, and it's still a very lively system in many other countries as well. It's taken them years and decades and hundreds of years to really be able to where they are in countries where they are doing really well in terms of implementing a proper decentralized system of governance. And it's an evolving system as well, especially with how democracy is changing, perspectives on democracy is changing as well. So to me, as someone who was in government when we first initially drafted the Decentralization Act, to someone who was in 2019 very actively involved when we amended the the 2008 Decentralization Act, so much had happened. And I think the way I see it is the general trajectory of it, I would say, is progress. It's an upward slope, but we've had challenging situations where the powers are being withdrawn as well. But I think if we are not able to, if every 5-year term where politics change, if we're going to retract the powers, if we're going to retract the system that was doing well, that may really ultimately affect people's confidence in the system. And that's what I fear is more dangerous than actually not moving forward. If people in the end lose confidence and in the system, then the entire system is going to be jeopardized. So my concern is the lack of political consensus, especially bipartisan consensus on where we are headed. And in 2008, when we amended the Constitution, we agreed on the rules of how we want to govern the system. And in that Constitution, it was laid out that the Maldives will continue to have a governance framework based on unitary system. And I think that's the starting point of where we're going to go forward. If we want to change this, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and amend the Constitution on these things. But the initial starting point of our decentralization system is a unitary system. And how we have achieved different levels of devolution, and particularly, I think, a huge achievement in 2019, which came after wide stakeholder discussions and analysis on what we have learned, what were the mistakes in the 2010 decentralization law, and over the time what happened between politics as well. But I think a main achievement of the 2019 amendments was, like as Shamoon has said previously, is giving the councils, giving the local governance system more authority on revenue generation and more authority on defining their jurisdiction as well. And it was not an easy process. It was hard for, even within the political parties, even within the parliament, even within the politicians, it was a fight. So I think disregarding that hard work to get to there, to give more authority to local councillors to generate revenue, again, if we have to go back to try and unravel this, is going to be a huge challenge. So maintaining public confidence in the decentralization system in a democracy is a fundamental element of how we can progress. And even, devolve more, continue to devolve more, and have more perfect the system. So that, just to comment on what we were discussing earlier, to get your point on how local governance system has been back and forth with regards to resource management and the kind of challenges that we face on climate change and environmental problems we face, I think it's important to understand, as a small island country, the kind of challenges we face with regards to resource management as well. One is, we just heard a wonderful talk with Professor Paul Kench, who had really given a interesting scientific perspective on what happens to coastal management. But there are other resources like water resource management. Every single island in the Maldives has literally run out of fresh drinking water. And what has happened, added impacts of climate change in terms of vegetation and even the impact on agriculture and waste management as well. At an island level, our number one environmental problem really is how we have failed on effective waste management. And I think the local island, local councillors at a local government level should play a huge role in these things. One is, for example, the lack of long-term data on what has happened to our coastlines is a big problem we face at a central level as well when planning effective adaptation measures. I'll just give you an example of one of the projects that the Maldives is currently implementing, which is funded by the GCF. And for the funding to be approved, this particular island had to provide data to prove that what is happening in that island's coastal system is because of climate change. But the island did not have long-term data on what is happening to it. So, but this is something that even LGA, I think, could really play a role. And we were starting to work on these things, on how we could have long-term data collection. Another thing is waste management. And I think for decades, many years, we have thought that the central government should come and pick waste and put it on another island. But I think we really need to change our perspective and opinions on how we can play a much better role by providing the kind of resources that island councils need to manage waste at a local level. Another issue is with regards to water resource management. Again, a perspective that we have developed over the years is that the solution to lack of clean drinking water is building desalination plants on every island, which is really expensive, which is a huge drain on the island's resources and even the national resource system as well. But how could we harness rainwater collection system and integrate it into a system where that can be better used? These are systems that we had traditionally depended on, but I think in the past couple of decades, perspectives have changed and we don't need to preserve the rainwater system. So these are just some examples of what kind of role local government, local councils can play in better planning for the kind of challenges we face in the face of climate impacts too.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now there is one comment popping up from within.
I'll make it very short. Just want to add on to what Shauna spoke about, waste management. I'm never going to pass up an opportunity to promote decentralization. And so 7 years ago, if you look at the Maldives, especially across the islands, the number of islands that had even a waste collection, let's not say even a waste management system, a waste collection system numbered in the tens. But now, if you look across the Maldives, in the vast majority of the islands, waste collection happens and waste management has started improving. In fact, in the research done by the International Republican Institute between 2019 and 2024, the number one service that the people's satisfaction has improved the most over the past 5 years is waste management. And this is solely attributable to decentralization and councils learning from each other to manage their own waste. So this radical change happened because local communities were empowered. Well, I wouldn't say empowered, given the space to solve a problem that they could have solved a long time ago had it not been for central governments putting their finger on decision making for the past centuries. Thank you.
One more comment is coming. Let's keep it short, but otherwise the audience here, they have also a round of questions just after this.
Yeah.
And you all are accountable.
When it comes to waste management, managing each island's waste separately by themselves is not feasible. So that that no network council identified it, and we discussed with Environment Ministry, discussed it with, proposed the model, a sustainable model to World Bank as well. They approved the model. They recommended the government that that is a model that which is feasible, that where resort islands and inhabited islands should work together to make it feasible enough to manage waste. There is a regulation introduced by the central government where resort waste could not be integrated. It has to be separated. It has to be brought to Tilafushi. Where on the way, they sometimes put it on the reef. So that is the kind of model that is going on. But the funding agencies, we locals also have produced models, and also we have got funding sometimes for this. When it comes to managing in a scale, we need an economic other factors, other resources, other partners, where the tourist resorts are a separate country. It's a separate country. It's Maldives. We are in Diviraj. So we cannot integrate our economic, our municipal services, nothing with them. How can decentralization work? How can an economy work? We cannot sell our mm, uh, uh, agriculture products to the resorts, produce to the
Yeah,
resort.
that's something aligned with Uncle Sam's dream. So,
It was about a waste management comment only.
indeed, yes, that's really insightful, indeed. So, yes, now it's really time, and I know there must be questions, right? So let's keep it short and shoot the questions to those who are accountable. So many hands. Yes, please. Nalim will take care of it, I think.
Assalamu alaikum. Ade algondu namake Aisha Thusammaniko. Gato. Algondu divehibam waak dakkani. Ade algondu dannawalam beenumani algondu men detin divehim mithai bathivime. Gato. Tibe furna kiyus divehi be furne. Ehem vema me shawnaga waak fula ayman jawabas devwafi. Hemi algondu menge me kuninagumaga masile hallu hodu mattaka sama divehi bahum wa dekkima kannega mekankan hallu wane ehma algondu edekama ki tibe fulun tarjama kolan iwa devun detil jumla nama bes engata algon men divehin nan ecce adu iwan beenam fulu wanya engata warabbar shukriya den me divehinna sawal kuruwan divessa kutita inne winama bes algon hitangara hadarangalu wane ye shukriya.
For sure, there is a translation available. We'll share, inshallah, with you. And IRI is working on it. Right, Fazila Miss? We are working on it. Yes. We have one question from our rector. All right. Continue. Yes.
Hi, I am Raiyo. I am the co-founder of an AI research organization here called Etola. Then, mita aur boda wahak take India do ahake ki local council take bohutte knowledge wahake ki ಎದುರುವರಿಂಗೆ ಬೋಟೆ knowledge ದಂಡಮಿಹೋಂಗೆ ಬೋಟೆ knowledge ಮಿಹುರಿಯ ವಾಹಕತೆಗೆ aslo I don't think we respect it enough because like when we are building like one of our areas of research is kinetto rajyege mihunna wahakataka like how can we use our stories in a more productive way using technology. So has there been any work done where we have gone to local councils and gone to local islands and really like codified this knowledge, digitized this knowledge to produce something that will ultimately produce something more innovative? Because like again, people have been living in these islands for generations. We don't need to do another report. There is knowledge already existing. And so I really respect like the work of Muhammad Bashir and like people of the Noon Atoll Council. I think that's a very fresh perspective to have. My question again being, why don't we go down and take all these stories and find a more meaningful, like productive narrative there?
I'll take that question first. A quick comment, also a little bit of perspective. There's a misconception again that the local councils have been in operation for a long time, that they've had the power to do a lot of things and the space to do a lot of things, but they weren't able to for a lack of capacity, etc. But that's a wrong perception. The first time the councils had clear jurisdictions and an ability to develop their own development plans and try and implement it was through the 2019 amendment. And even then, COVID put a stop on a lot of things. And the councils finally, for the first time, had some breathing room in following 2021. So the councils have had very little room to work on all of these issues. And now, unfortunately, we're seeing a reversal of trends where everything's from top to bottom. There's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of desire at the community level to preserve their culture, their literature, their way of life, and use the resources around them to address the issues that they have locally, regionally, which would then lead to resolution of problems at the central level as well and the national level as well. So I know for a fact that all of the councils would be very interested in working with NGOs to address the specific issue that you've highlighted. There are NGOs, there are councils working on it. There are councils that have started efforts at preservation of local knowledge, stories, practices, recipes, etc. So yeah, definitely.
We will limit it to one response. Sorry, the panelists.
It's important.
Yes, please.
There is no public data exchange infrastructure developed in Maldives. There are 200 portals developed by central authorities where we have to feed data. So when we are feeding to these 200 repetitive portals, what are we to do to capture other data from the communities? There are more than 200 portals now developed by central authorities where central authorities do not share their data within their agencies. All are fed by us. So that is what is happening. There is no public data exchange infrastructure in Maldives. That is what is happening. I think
really the yellow screen, it scares me. Maybe I will fade or something. So I'll shift to the second round of questions. Well, the theme is we are now talking about opportunities for research, innovation, and policy changes. The solution part, right? The complaining part is done. So,
Never done.
question is, which is open to all the panelists, and the time is 2 to 3 minutes to respond. Given back and forth between centralization and decentralization, what is the ideal balance? Very important. What is the ideal balance of power between Male and local councils to ensure equitable, resilient, and sustainable development? Mind the word, where is that word? Ideal balance, please.
Yeah, I think the ideal balance is where there need to be a very clear. There's no, defined system of decentralization. Different countries has different system. I think the ideal way is actually to have a clear role of central government as well as the local government, and also the central government to be the policy maker, and the central governments to provide resources and equity, and leave the local planning part and delivering municipal services to local councils. So the power has to be divided likewise, and it has to be very clear.
Can I add to that? I'd like to say the current system is definitely not ideal. That's for sure. And adding on to that, there has to be a minimum governance system. By minimum governance system, I mean local councils have to have a say in things that affect the governance system. Currently, there's very little inclusion, there's very little discussion, and also there has to be a question of the provision 4, Article 4 of the Constitution says all powers are derived from and remain with the people, which also translates to the resources of the country also remain with the people. Unfortunately, the resources of the communities, of the islands, of the whole country are controlled by the central government and are then used to gain political favor with communities. Instead of that, the system needs to change. And so we need to say all of the resources of this country are the people's resources. How can what do the people want, how do the people want to use these resources to best build resilience and achieve sustainable development in their atolls, in their regions? And if we ask that question, then it would be much, much easier for us to arrive at an ideal level of centralization versus decentralization, because there's always going to be friction between centralization and decentralization, central governments and local governments. But the minimum level is that all of the resources of the country are people's resources, not the central government's resources to give away and exploit at their whims to gain political favor with communities. So that's the minimum. Thank you.
Central government is also for the people, by the people, from the people. Well, the next question is, looking ahead, what are the 3 most urgent policy priorities? And we have to be very on spot. 3 most urgent policy priorities to strengthen decentralization so that it endures beyond political cycles and truly empowers local communities. Yes, we have 2 more.
Abolish island jurisdiction,
Okay.
establish an atoll level jurisdiction where resorts, tourist resorts, inhabited islands could work together and create an economy which would enable to solve municipal issues, this heavy subsidizing of electricity and waste and energy, which would enable to resolve housing issues up certain extent, which would enable regional capacity for education, health as well. So, which could bring a balance. I don't know for whom. I would like to say a balance, or what we deserve now is a federal system. We have lost everything, actually. We have lost everything. Our families are uprooted from our islands, living here as strangers. Even every one of my family lives here. We don't meet. We meet for birthday parties only. When we meet on the road, we say hi. That is the kind of life we have here. So we have done a survey in Noon Atoll where the result was after 10 years, there will be 8 people, or 10 people living in, from 10 people living in the island, 8 people will be above 65 of age. 2 people will be walking age. How can they take care of them?
That's true.
Thank you.
Solutions, 3 most urgent policy priorities. Even you can use the bullet points.
I think one of the things that we made huge progress in 2019 amendments was once the land use plan of an island is completed through a process that is defined by the law, the land use plan's implementation process of that land use plan should be solely on the local councils. And given more resources such as the revenue that is earned from the island's jurisdiction and a portion of the national revenue and other resources, that funds, I think that revenue has to be allocated and dedicated for the implementation of the land use plan. And the central government's role is a regulatory role. It is not to interfere with the implementation of island development plans. And I think there are certain aspects of central government's policies, which are again defined by constitutional and other legislations as well, such as, ensuring public health, and even the public health perspective, the local councils play a huge role in it. So to simply put, once the land use plans and the island development plans are completed through a process that is defined by the law, the implementation of that should be on local council. And the central government's role is regulatory and enforcement and ensuring enough resources are given to local councils to implement those plans.
Thank you. Well, one solution I would like to add, please. That solution is about a bicameral legislature that we had previously, taking people from the atoll councils as well in another house in the Majlis will add to the representation. And like Mr. Bashir said, really, that's quite something that we feel every day, right? That if the decentralization can be at the atoll level, and like that, it would really help. And there was one comment by Rector, so that we will be taking. Nalim, okay. Is there a mic?
Thank you very much, Amish. And I think I should express my appreciation for the perspectives of all these panelists. I like the way Shamoon started, where the central authority began, and then, of course, Bashir's perspective of the present arrangements, and of course, two additional, both the Shauna and has given us a academic sort of perspective, historical and also perhaps legal. I think Amish, you got to take it to Qasim Ibrahim School of Business and ask them to perhaps analyze the presentation, give our other discussions, and then see if we can bring out a new idea or something like that. That's for the Amish one. Thank you very much for the panelists.
Thank you, Rector. Thank you, panelists. And now we can draw our conclusions. I'm not here to conclude. And thanks a lot, panelists. Really wonderful insights. And with this, we'll put end to this panel discussion. And we will be staying here for a little token of appreciation.
Session. May we invite Dean of Qasim Ibrahim School of Business, Mr. Abdullah Nafiz, to present the certificates of appreciation to the panel. Ms. Aminat Shauna. Mr. Muhammad Bashir. Mr. Shamoon Adam. Mr. Ayman Rashid. And Mr. Amish Abdullah. Thank you all.